Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Least of These. We pray that through these radical stories of God's life-changing power, you will be encouraged and emboldened by the Spirit of God. Enjoy this next testimony on The Least of These. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Least of These. I am so excited to be here with the two people that are in the room with me today. They are two of my really good friends slash relatives slash best people ever.
That's all you get.
It's all you get. I have Nathaniel and Bethany Perea here with me, guys. Thanks for joining me today.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Bethany chose not to speak. She's just going to sit and listen for this podcast today. So she's going to try to speak. But I am so excited that they're here. We're going to be talking a lot about what's going on in their lives, what the Lord has done, and what the Lord is going to do. And I think you guys will be very blessed and very excited. So without further ado, I think we should get right into it. So the way I'm going to break this up, since there is two people this time instead of just the one, we're going to start with each of you talking about just your early life and how you came to know the Lord. So I guess that's my first question. I'm going to start with Nathaniel. Nathaniel, why don't you tell me about yourself growing up, your family, how you, I guess, came to know the Lord?
Yeah. Well, it all started the day I was born.
That fateful day.
That one time.
The
No.
infamous day.
So I grew up in Denver, Colorado. My parents are Richard and Kelly Perea. So, as we're thinking about, a testimony and, our lives, how we came to know Christ, I mean, really, it's, I think I feel like I've lived a very, very privileged life in the Lord. I think the Lord has been so kind to me in that, growing up, I had such faithful parents, parents who truly loved the Lord, parents who walked out their faith, not just obviously in talk, but obviously in their life at home and in their life individually with us kids. And so, I feel like a lot of my testimony is a bigger testimony to the faithfulness of my parents, to truly walk out a godly life for me, to truly train me up. And so, obviously, I've had some bumps and scrapes and bad, seasons in my life. But, growing up, I grew up in a Christian house, obviously. So my dad has been in ministry. He was a pastor my whole life growing up. So he, I've always got to see him kind of model ministry for me. But what I think was so awesome, and I think you can ask any of the Perea kids, is growing up that my parents weren't. The ministry, it started at home, and it was, they were very faithful to take us as kids. I remember even as young kids, through the Word. Every morning we get together for breakfast, and my parents would open up the Word with us, and we'd read it together, and we'd discuss it together. And so the ministry really was first and foremost at home, and so I think that was huge for us, and it wasn't like ministry. I think for some people who've had a harder go, maybe sometimes their parents have been in ministry, and ministry can be almost a hindrance to their walk with Christ because they've been put on the back burner or something. And obviously that's always a struggle and balancing, but I think my parents and my dad especially really always was very purposeful and very intentional with us. So growing up, I don't think there wasn't a moment of where I just kind of like, hit this wall and I was like, I finally surrendered my life to Christ. But I think, it was more of transitioning from my faith being dependent on my parents, to a season where the Lord had to hold I had to be accountable myself to the Lord in my faith. And so I think as I think back on my testimony, it more of is kind of a picture of that, of starting off as my parents being faithful to teach us the truth and faithful to take us through the Word. And so I feel like from a young age, I felt like I had a relationship with the Lord, but I think when I was about 16 or 17 is when the Lord really, really, I hit a wall of, okay, your faith is no longer dependent on your parents, and I was really I was being faced with decisions, whether or not to really to dive into sin, into what I wanted to do and rebel against my parents or not, and the Lord kind of had to really put that on my heart. He's like, okay, so you either choose your sin or you choose me. And so, as I think a 16-year-old, I think there's two significant moments. I think one, when we first moved out here, and I was a younger person, teenager, I was like 12 years old. And, obviously you face the struggle of, being frustrated at losing your friends, losing your family, losing the life you had. But I think that first significant moment was being here in South Carolina and trusting the Lord that he really knows what's best for my life. Even as a 12-year-old, when you move and your whole life is kind of like uprooted, you face that question, you know what I mean? And so you kind of have to, your choice is you get bitter at your parents and you get bitter at God, and then you push back, or you have to trust the Lord that everything you've been learning and reading is true, that he really knows what's best for you. And so I think that was the first moment when we moved from Denver, Colorado, to South Carolina. It was the first moment I remember really the Lord kind of a shift beginning to take place of my faith is my own, and it's not just through my parents or through my family. So that was the first moment. The second moment was when I was turning, I think it was like 17 or 18 is when, I was starting to make some silly decisions, mostly with dating. My parents didn't want me to date, but I thought I knew better than them. And
don't we all?
We're pursuing a girl and girls and, and being stupid. And the Lord kind of had to stop me and be like, okay, are you going to choose your sin? Or are you going to choose me? And, and I remember that being another significant moment of, okay, if I choose my sin, I know, because I've been taught my sin has real consequences, and it's not all hunky dory, it feels good in the moment, but I'm like, if I continue this way, I know, and I can see the consequences that are ahead of me. And, and even though maybe it's painful to confess and to rid yourself of sin in the moment, I was faced with that moment of, do I trust the Lord that he knows what's best for me? And that confessing my sin will be better for me than continuing in it. And so I think that's a lesson, obviously, you continue to learn. But I think as a 17-year-old boy was when I really, the Lord again hit me with another, okay, you gotta man up, and you're accountable to me now. It's not just your parents, you're accountable to me. And so I think those were the most two significant moments, So, but growing up, I was always involved in ministry. I had my dad to look at. He would, serve at the church. He was a worship pastor, one of the associate pastors, so I got to see kind of behind the scenes of ministry and what it takes to run a church, what it takes to be a pastor, and really his faithfulness there. And then to my mom, she was homeschooling all 8 of us crazy children.
8 kids, man. That's just insane.
So looking at my mom, yeah, I mean, especially having kids, you're like, how in the world? But my mom was faithful to homeschool us, and even that, as a young boy, I was like, man, I didn't like that. I wanted my friends. I wanted to be in public school. I want, whatever. But looking back, you see, okay, my parents were protecting me, and from things that I would have been involved in, that would have messed me up. But not only that, but they were teaching me the word and not the world's philosophy and not the world's truth. And so, so I've had, again, I would say I've had a very privileged Christian life, as in I've had faithful parents who've gone before me, who've walked, maybe who've lived the harder life, and then have been able to come back to us and say, okay, this is why what we believe is true. And so, not to say I didn't make mistakes or, struggle with certain sins or addictions, but I think I had my parents to go back to for a long time to really guide me and to help me walk through those and to help me see that my sin has consequence. So, but I think moving to Charleston was a significant moment in my faith and trusting the Lord for my future. And then turning 17, 18, excuse me, when I really had to learn that I'm accountable to the Lord and not just to my parents. And so those were, I think, the 2 biggest moments of significance in my faith of just, okay, this is not just parents' faith. This is your faith. This is your relationship with the Lord. You're accountable to me now. And so, so that, I mean, I know it's not the most exciting thing, but we can talk. We got, we were talking about earlier. We feel like a larger portion of our testimony is kind of later on in our life, and I guess we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yep.
But that's kind of how I grew up in Denver in ministry. I had faithful parents, and I think those are the two significant moments of change for me. It was moving here and becoming a man, a young man.
We still question the young man part of things. So with that too, I guess once you hit that point where you have to decide, are you going to choose to sin or are you going to choose to follow the Lord? Once you chose to follow the Lord, what was the fruit that you saw out of that? How did the Lord start calling you to ministry? Because for those of you who don't know, Nathaniel and Bethany are our worship leaders at the church. They've been faithfully leading and serving in our church for a long time. So how did the Lord, I guess, when did you know that you were called to worship ministry or to just ministry in general? How did the Lord put that calling in your heart? And what was that like?
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because I feel like, I was surprised. I think I'm really lucky when it comes to, knowing what the Lord is calling me to, because I feel like it's weird. I've known for ever. It's weird. I remember being a little kid again, and obviously I think the Lord is intentional about, my parents being who they are and calling them into ministry so I can see that. But I remember being a little kid and being like, I know this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. And so I just remember being, 8 years old and being like, I'm going to do ministry. But, and I know it's kind of funny. I mean, you think of it as a kid and you're like, that's, whatever. But I just, that never went away. You know what I mean? And it only solidified, again, moving to Charleston. It was I was recognizing, I'm like, okay, this is not just, God isn't just calling my parents to Charleston. He's calling me to Charleston. And he doesn't just have work for my parents. He has work for me. You know what I mean? And the immediate work was planning this church. And so it was, again, I feel really lucky because I feel like I've known forever for a long time. I've always known the Lord is calling me into ministry. And so I remember actually being kind of surprised when talking to other Christians who didn't know. I was like, you mean you don't know what God wants you to, as a younger Christian, I was like, wow, that's so weird. I think I don't know. I mean, but I'm the oddball out. And I think the Lord had just always burdened my heart that way. And part of my thinking was if you're Christian, that's what you're called. There are Christians who aren't called to ministry. It's just this is what you're supposed to do. But so as far as really that transition, so I had started serving. I think I first started doing worship when I was 14 or 15. And so my dad was leading worship and teaching, in the church plant. And so he first kind of brought me on board, gave me the opportunity at 15. But really, it kind of was that point when I was 17, 18 is when I think there was a big shift, even in ministry, where I was faced with, I have to face my sin and confess it and get it out of my life. And at that moment I was serving. And so when I had to make that decision, I had to step back from ministry for a little bit to fix my relationship with the Lord. So the immediate effect was stepping back from ministry. So, there was kind of a pruning process that took place. But, through stepping back, through writing my relationship with the Lord first, and then stepping back into ministry is I guess, really around that season, about a year after I really made that decision. I was 17, and when I turned 18 is when my dad handed the worship ministry over to me. So, and that's when I started school at CSU as well. But I remember that was kind of, I think, a turning point for the Lord. For me, that the Lord was like, okay, if you choose me, I have work for you to do. Yeah. If not, there's consequences, and it'll be your own doing. So for me, it was immediate. It was a pruning process, stepping back from ministry, writing my relationship with the Lord. And then when I stepped back into ministry, I took on, I guess, a bigger role. And so that was kind of my first step in that direction of taking on maybe the full weight of a ministry or beginning to. So.
Was ministry what you expected it to be?
I don't know. It's interesting because I think we starting ministry. Yes and no. I think I have the privilege of seeing my parents, and so I think there's pieces of it that maybe I was aware of how hard it was to a certain degree. But at the same time, I think really nothing prepares you for ministry like doing ministry. You know what I mean? You can go to school all you want. Not that that's a bad thing, but you know what I mean? But I remember After doing school for ministry and actually being in ministry, I was like, man, I've learned so much more just being in ministry. Really, the ins and outs of the hardship and the what it really takes to be faithful, even in hard seasons and dry seasons, and so I had some expectations, but I mean, you can ask anybody who's stepped into ministry, and it's always crazier and harder and weirder than you would ever expect, and so yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're very thankful that the Lord called you into ministry and that it was very clear. I know this church is very blessed by the way that you lead and that you're very, it's very anointed. I know I've heard that many times. Bethany, so you have been in Charleston your whole life, correct?
Yes, born and raised
Born
here.
and raised, unlike pretty much everyone else in
That's
this
true.
area now. Like it's not native.
I'm a true native.
You're a true
yes.
native. So I guess what was it like for you growing up in Charleston and with your family? And kind of the same question, how did the Lord really start to grab a hold of your heart, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I think the particular note about Charleston is interesting because obviously we're in the Bible Belt. There's a million churches here and around here. And I would say that for a long time, I also grew up in a Christian home, and we were every Sunday churchgoers. And I think, I don't know, it's hard to say, but obviously people here sometimes believe because it's the culture to be believers.
Definitely.
And I don't know that I really saw a whole lot of people walking out faith for several years of my life, excluding like my immediate family. But that it wasn't necessarily super, I don't know if this is a weird way to say it, but like a big deal to be a Christian here. Everybody kind of was.
Yeah.
And also all of our friends in school, we're Christians, we go to church, and but it wasn't necessarily evident in most of my friends' lives. Obviously, being little is different anyways. But
For sure.
My parents, though, obviously, they were, I was also very, very lucky, have amazing parents. And my dad has always been such a Christ-like person, and my mom has been a stay-at-home mom and just taken extra good care of my sister and I. And, we always had a similar thing, what Nathaniel was saying, a safety net of really amazing parents. And so our life was very privileged in the Lord as well. Like, we just had a wonderful home and an awesome family. So I got baptized around 7 or 8 at the church we were going to. And a few years later, we found Calvary Chapel. I was 11, and that was the first time I remember really noticing, I think, the Holy Spirit. In it, because it was evident in the church, I feel like. And Calvary Chapel started in very humble beginnings. It wasn't like we really just walked into an experience like a lot of churches have now. It was just a school with metal chairs, and I don't even know how many people were there when we first came.
Emo kids.
Yeah,
Packing
I
things
was
up all the
I was,
time.
Wearing girl pants.
I was a little bit afraid of Aubrey.
I'm still afraid of Aubrey, let's be real.
Anyway, but I just remember the worship. That was the first thing I remember about the church. Dad was singing, and Don Gonzalez, and I think Carolyn was singing the first week too. And I, kind of in a similar way to what you're saying, when I saw that, I was like, I think I want to do this. And like, I just felt this in me, and I was 11, so I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. But the Holy Spirit kind of put that on my heart the first week we came to Calvary Chapel. And we got to grow up with the Perea family at that point. We got really close with all of them. Catherine was my best friend from that point on. And I think I left this out, but all through my childhood, I was public schooled. And at 14, so halfway through my freshman year, my parents decided to make the switch and homeschool us because public, like, you know, everything what you're saying, to make that choice to protect us from the public school world. Not that it's horrible, but it's not great. And I was not happy about it. I was very upset that I was missing my friends and, you know, whatever else a 14-year-old can be upset about. But looking back now, obviously it was the right choice. And it's even just amazing to see how God used that to open a door for the rest of my life to play out, obviously in his will. But at 14, after being pulled out of school and doing homeschool, I don't even know if you remember this, but the way that your dad found out I could sing is we were hanging out at your house, Catherine and I, and you and Aubrey. We were just playing around. We were singing Paramore songs because we were
Early
little
2000s.
I haven't heard Paramore
early
in a long
2000s
time.
Paramore songs. And you and Aubrey were like, wow, you can sing. And I was like, oh no. And so then you guys maybe go sing in front of Dad, which was a horrible experience for me. If you
Think
don't-
you're nervous now.
if you- yeah, I know.
Experience
If
that.
If you don't know or can't tell, I am a nervous Nelly and always have been. And that is where my son gets his nervousness from. But anyways, and so Dad kind of put me on the spot, had me sing some songs, had me do some harmony, you know, while he was singing, while you guys were singing. And like, I'm pretty sure the next week he scheduled me for worship. And, you know, I was kind of torn between like, yeah, I know this is what I'm supposed to do, and also just kind of freaking out.
How old were you at this
I was
point?
14.
14.
Yeah. But again, that was one of the things that the Lord just immediately started using. Like, okay, you have all this time now, you're doing homeschool, and, you know, certain days, I'm a perfectionist. Certain days I would spend all day on one subject and one project, and it was not good. And then certain days I would finish all of my work really quickly. And then I was able to use that time, actually for school, was able to learn guitar. Nathaniel was my guitar teacher.
Scored that deal, man.
My parents actually paid him
Wow.
to teach me guitar.
Dang, man.
I don't even know. We can talk about it when we get close to it, but like, I just remember at that point, I secretly was like in love with Bethany. I mean, everyone kind of knew it. It was like, anyways, but I was secretly like absolutely in love with Bethany, and she didn't know it yet. And then her parents were like, "Hey, we'll pay you to teach her guitar." And I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" And I was like, "Yes," you know.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So that was sweet.
Yeah. And so once a week he got to come over and do a guitar lesson with me for school, and
for money.
and for money. Yeah.
That's, yeah.
But
Still, I'm like,
anyway,
wow, that's amazing.
and just another thing that the Lord really implemented early on through school, through homeschool, the opportunity that I had to do, I took a photography class, and then was able to mentor with someone at our church. Her name is Becky Williamson. She's an amazing photographer, and I was her assistant, and then I was her intern, and then I was her second shooter. I worked for her. That was my job for several years, was shooting weddings with Becky. And, you know, it's just very cool now to see how the Lord used that season where I was bitter at first. I'm like, I don't want to do homeschool. You know, I was just really not happy about it, but the Lord just used it in amazing ways. And, yeah, I guess I don't know if that counts as the early life and where you want me to stop.
No, it definitely does. It definitely counts as early life. And now you have your own photography business.
I do.
Right.
Yeah.
And she takes amazing wedding photos and takes amazing photos of houses for me as a realtor. So
Thank you, Becky Williamson.
yeah, thank you, Becky, for all that you've done for all of us through Bethany. It's so good. So going back to Nathaniel talking about him being in love with you and getting to teach you guitar. Obviously, Nathaniel knew it very early on. How did that relationship spark? When did you have those feelings of, ooh, Nathaniel, you're kind of cute?
Well, when we first met each other at the church, I was 11 and he was 12.
Mm-hmm.
We liked each other then. I don't think that lasted very long.
Yeah, we both. Well, it was funny because you were good friends with Catherine, my little sister, and so. But when we first met your family, we were like the only kids
people
in
our
the church.
age.
Yeah, he was the only other girl in the church. The only girl I knew.
Hey, rude.
No, but we did like each other then, and then I don't know. We just kind of like. I mean, we're 12. It's not like we could do anything about it. You know?
Like, oh, okay.
We started dating when we were 12. No, so I mean, we're 12 years old, and then
obviously nothing happened. Then.
You know. And so we both, I think just growing up being teenagers, I think we both kind of like, I think we went through the same phase of like, so our parents both had put rules like you can't date. Mine was you can't date until 18. I don't know if yours had the same rules initially.
I don't think necessarily initially, but then they're like, oh yeah, that's a good Perea rule. I like that.
But so our parents had that rule: you can't date someone until you're 18, and so because they're thinking, I think they. I'm just gonna say our older siblings ruined dating for us.
Yes.
Man. So they saw it with the older kids go through dating as younger
Talking
teenagers.
about you, Laura.
And we're like, never and never again, And so, me as like a 15-year-old, I'm like, you discover that girls are so pretty and you like girls and you want to be around them. And so I think we both, probably around the same age, it was like 15, we started, I guess I did. It was like 14 or 15. I started dating, and even though it wasn't really, it's like I wasn't dating, but I was dating, but it was just kind of like this weird under the table relationship that everyone knew about, And so I started dating, and then it was taking relationships and dating into my own hands. I was stupid, and started dating 2 girls at one time, and that was. The worst and the stupidest season of my life.
Man.
And so,
You wised up.
yeah, so I kind of like went through for me, it was like, I was choosing these relationships for myself, and I was like, I'm doing what I want to do. And then the Lord was like, okay, you idiot, you are obviously wrong. You obviously need me to, so I when I was like 16 or 17, I broke up with the girl that I was dating then, and it was kind of immediately, because really breaking up with her was part of the big decision of me, like, I'm choosing the Lord over my sin. And so breaking up with her and then kind of getting my relationship with the Lord on track, it kind of was like this immediate switch, and the Lord was just kind of like opening my eyes to Bethany, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's been here the whole time, oh my gosh, where have you been all my life? No, more like, where have I been? I'm an idiot, So that, for me, it was like 16, 17, I started liking Bethany. And at the same time, Bethany was kind of going through really the exact same situation, maybe not the same, she wasn't dating 2 guys, but but she was dating and guys that relationships that were not good, and so we both kind of had the same like come to Jesus season where we're like, we have to stop dating and we have to come to the Lord and fix our relationships and wait, and so it was funny because I think I kind of was realizing first when she was still in a relationship that wasn't good, and I remember. I was doing discipleship with Rodney Henderson, that's Bethany's dad, and so that was part of.
Backtrack a second. Hold on. You're getting paid to teach her guitar, and you're being discipled by her dad. You got it all in here, man.
It was insane. I'm like looking back. I'm like, this is the best setup ever. So So when I was like turning back to the Lord, I got into discipleship with Rodney, and me and Rodney started discipling, and it was funny because like. That season was amazing. We were going through the Word together, and I feel like the Lord was doing a lot of pruning and a lot of molding and shaping through Rodney, and so that was an amazing season. But it's also like me secretly being in love with his daughter at the time. I was like, I'm building such a great relationship with her dad. I was like, this is amazing. And then on top of that, it was kind of funny because he would like come to me and with his concerns about Bethany's current relationship. And I'd be like, yeah, that's a bad idea. This is bad news, You should probably stop that, So I started liking Bethany first. And so I was kind of in this period of where, like, I liked Bethany, and I felt like, and, everyone says this, and I felt like, and again, everyone says this when they're dating, but they feel like, oh, I feel like God told me I'm going to marry her. But I did. I was like, and listen, and every young person who I hear who's dating who says, God told me I'm going to marry this person, it's always like, did he? Because really? I think he told you the last girl was you're going to marry
sure
too.
For me too, many times. It's like, pretty sure this is the one I'm supposed to marry.
Yeah.
God's like, nope, you're wrong.
Yeah, and so, but this time I was sure of it, So, no, but it was different. It really was different. Anyway, so I liked Bethany, and I was just kind of waiting, and I saw her in a relationship that wasn't great, and so I was just kind of waiting. And so I was in this weird period, and you have to talk to my parents about it. It was funny because I would like cry. I am not a crier, but I would cry over Bethany. Like, no, it was
Laura
crazy.
has told me these stories of like coming home and finding you crying in your room because you wanted to be with Bethany.
I would come home and I'm like, I'm just so in love. And, and I'd just be bawling my eyes out. And my parents would just crack up at me. And I'm like, I'm not like an emotional, I don't cry all the time, But it just,
How many times
I was
have
waiting
you cried
for her.
since we've been together?
Two.
2.
I mean, but like, I keep telling she's always like, why aren't you
me.
sad? I'm like, I have nothing to be sad about anymore, mother. I have you. I won, So there's nothing to be sad about anymore. Ooh. Anyway, so we're kind of prolonging this. I started liking Bethany when I was 17, and I had to wait for her because she was in another relationship. That relationship ended, and she was kind of healing and getting her walk with the Lord back on track. And so I was just kind of like waiting for her, like waiting for the perfect
was the
time.
hardest.
And so in that kind of season of waiting is when me and Bethany started doing guitar together. And I was, again, like her parents paying me and I was just like in love with this girl, and her dad is paying me to hang out with her.
Secretly, Rodney and Jeanette
like,
already had this
oh
plan of like, Nathaniel's the one, let's start to work this way.
We did that, but then we also started recording together because we were both doing worship together. So like I would see her for worship, and then I would see her for guitar, and then my dad was like, you guys, I want to record some worship music for the church. And then he's like, you and Bethany do it. And I was like, that's a great idea. So then we started recording a little bit together. And so we just got we were getting closer and closer and closer. And it kind of got to the point where like everyone knew. It was funny because everyone knew that I was like in love with her. And everyone saw it and was like, you guys, this is not even like, you're not hiding it at all. You're just like, But the only person who didn't know that was Bethany. And it drove me crazy because I was like, how do you not know? And everyone around her was like, Nathaniel loves you so, and
I didn't know because you never told me.
I wasn't allowed to tell you.
But how was I supposed
I was
to
sworn to secrecy.
Couldn't you see it in his eyes?
And all of the time we spent together. Anyway, so basically, it hit this. We're growing closer and closer and closer. And at this point, I had turned 17, so I was legally allowed to date. So I was allowed to date, and then Bethany.
You turned 18.
I turned 18. Yeah, and I was allowed to date, but I was waiting for you, and so. But we ended up going on a missions trip, or I went on a missions trip to Ireland, and I had this excuse that like. To text Bethany because I needed to keep people in Charleston updated, So I'm in Ireland.
I think also you were like, you would text me about like the worship set, like you would tell me like which songs to do. Or I don't even know.
I found every excuse I could possibly find to text you, while I was in Ireland, But basically, I had spoken to Rodney, and I told Rodney, I said, Rodney, I like your daughter, and I want to date her, and he said, you need to wait, and so. I had this conversation with Rodney, and he told me he was going to talk to you. He said, I'm going to talk to Bethany. I don't know how she feels. I was going to get his permission to ask you out, but he was like, I don't even know if she likes you or not. And again, that was so frustrating to me because I was like, I think she does. I don't know, But it seemed like we did. Anyway, so he told me to wait. And so, but that conversation had happened like weeks ago. And at this point, I'm in Ireland, and I'm like, he's got to have told her by now that I had this conversation. And so in my mind, I'm assuming that we're talking and you knew how I felt about you. But you said you didn't. But anyways, basically we were talking in Ireland, long distance, and it just got to this point. I remember it was on the trip back, we are staying at a hotel. I think we're in Dublin. I don't remember where exactly. I remember the hotel room. It was me and John Geraci in the room.
Nothing good happens with John. Let's
And
just
I'm
be real.
texting, and I was texting Bethany, and he was like, "Are you supposed to be texting Bethany like that?" And I was like, "Yeah, her dad knows. Her dad reads the text or whatever," which he did. And so, but I remember like that, and we were just like talking, and I just remember I just like couldn't help it. I just literally texted her, and I was just like, "I love you." I was like,
No. You said I'm in love with
right.
you.
Well, no, because I remember I said, I love you. And like at this point, like we've been friends for years, and you know, and you were like, yeah, I love you too. And I didn't know. I was like, I need to clarify. I said, I'm in love with you. and then you said, I don't remember. Did you? I'm pretty sure you said you loved me back. I'm pretty sure you did. And then I remember being like, on one hand, just like exploding and being like, oh my gosh, you know, this is it, it's happening. But then on the other hand, realizing that I just broke. The conversation I had with Rodney was, I'm not going to say anything to your daughter. And so I remember being like, I just told Bethany I love her and she loves me back. And then Rodney, I was like, I have to go back and I have to face Rodney and be like, crap, I just told her. So I had to sit down and talk with Rodney when I got back and be like,
So sorry.
I messed up.
Please forgive me.
But he was kind and gracious about it. And at that point we got back and, we kind of were in this place of we told each other we love each other. It wasn't just, hey, I like you, can we date? It was, I'm in love with you, So then our parents had to sit down and talk. And I remember it was on your birthday party when you turned 18.
Yeah.
Your 18th birthday party. Our parents sat down and talked about us dating. And then I think it was like a few days later, I talked to your dad, and he was like, you guys have permission to finally date. And I remember it was October 25th, and I went straight from that meeting, and I got some flowers, and I went straight to your house and officially asked you out. So
October 25th, 2013?
2013. Yeah.
Because you've been married, it'll be 6 years in November, right?
6 years in November, yeah.
Crazy. 6 years. Well, that's awesome. That is an awesome story. So you've now been married for 6 years. Obviously, the Lord wanted you guys to be together, and you have...
I told you.
I told you.
He told me.
He told me.
I was right.
Oh, my gosh. It really was for sure for you.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So you've been married for 6 years. You have Aiden and Judah. Aiden is how old now?
Aiden is 4.5.
And then the loud mini Nathaniel is...
yes, he is his father's son, and he will be 3 in December.
3 in December. So you've been married, you've been doing ministry together. You have these 2 wonderful, crazy boys, and the Lord starts doing some other things, and life kind of takes a turn. Why don't you kind of walk through the story of your other son with us? I guess, how do you want to start that story?
You can start.
So we, how old was Aiden and Judah?
It's been 1.5 years now, right?
Yeah.
So we found out in January of 2019 that we were pregnant.
Baby number 3.
Baby number 3. Judah had just turned 2 in December.
And Ada was just born.
Yes.
My Ada. Sorry, my Ada.
Ada.
Yeah.
Not
Mm-hmm.
Ada. We named our children very confusing.
Yes, we did.
But it's fine. So he was a surprise baby. We weren't.
I think all of our babies.
They weren't all surprise babies. We weren't trying.
We had Aiden 6 months into our first year of marriage.
Yes.
And it's been 3 whoops ever since.
We did try for Judah. But
No,
anyways.
it's fine. The Lord knows best. It's
true.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
No complaints here.
Anyway, so Judah just turned 2, and you and anyone who knows Judah knows we weren't going to try for another baby yet because he's a little bit crazy.
He is his father's son. Let's
Aiden
just be real.
gave us false confidence as parents because he was.
We
a
talk
very
about
good child.
revenge babies. Let's just say Judah is Nathaniel's revenge for his childhood.
It's funny. I think Judah and Aiden, they're both easier. I think it's not that Judah's harder as much as I think it's just having 2 of them.
That's true.
I think because when they're by themselves,
They're
it's just
little
like,
angel
they're
babies.
so easy. But then you get them together, and it's the
They're just
brothers,
brothers,
and they're
yeah.
and they're just explosions. So I think that's more so than Judah is like. I mean, he is crazy.
Yeah.
But I think more so.
And
is
put
that
all the
their
cousins
2 kids
together,
are
all
difficult.
12 of them together, and it's a
I-
madhouse.
Yeah. So Judah was.
He had just turned
turned
2. Yeah. So we found out January 2019 that we were pregnant with baby number 3. And I remember I was not upset about it, but I was very overwhelmed by it. And spent a lot of the first several weeks knowing, honestly, kind of panicking about how am I going to do this and how am I going to have any hair left. And that's something I obviously very much regret now, just spending a lot of his early pregnancy just stressing out about it instead of just enjoying him while he was here. And we went to a place where you could find out the gender early with him, and we were so thankful that we did that because we have a CD of him at 16 weeks, right? Is that where we went at 14 and 16 weeks, right?
Yeah, I think 16.
Yeah. Anyway, so we found out he was a boy, and normally not necessarily normally, for the other 2 boys, we announced their names and the meaning of their names at 20 weeks, at the 20-week mark. And 20 weeks came around for Bo. We had decided to name him Bowen Abel and to call him Bo. And when 20 weeks came around, I had a feeling that maybe something wasn't quite right, and I put off doing that post announcing his name, kind of almost expecting to, I don't know what I thought. I didn't know if I would have to like add some sort of diagnosis of like, oh, we found this out at the next appointment, be praying, or, oh, he's, I don't know what I thought, but I just felt like something was wrong. And we were on the way to the anatomy scan, the 20-week anatomy scan for him. And I remember actually crying in the car and telling Nathaniel that I was really anxious this time around and that I didn't really know why, but I just like felt like something was wrong. And I remember, he's like, oh, it's okay. And I just was sitting in the waiting room feeling really, really nervous about the ultrasound this time, and just thinking we were going to find possibly a diagnosis that was going to be a little scary or something like that. But we never, ever would have expected what did happen. They brought us into the ultrasound room, and pretty much immediately when she put the ultrasound up on the screen, we knew.
Yeah, it was just kind of like there just was no.
He wasn't moving.
He wasn't moving.
We could tell the heart was not beating.
Mm-hmm. And I think we could see it on the ultrasound tech as well. She was just like
she was very quiet.
Just was like, okay, hold on, I gotta go. Get the doctor.
She turned off the TV and kind of ran out the room, and we looked at each other, and I think we knew, but at the same time it was still sinking in. I remember telling Nathaniel, I was like, I didn't see it. I didn't see his heart. And we just kind of couldn't breathe for, a couple seconds. I don't even know how long it took. I'm sure she was in quickly.
Quick, yeah. But
and they one more time just kind of checked a few different spots to make sure that he wasn't just behind the placenta or something. And she told us, she said, I'm so sorry, but he's gone. And that's not something we ever expected to hear. So they were very kind, and they put us in another room and just let us have as long as we needed in there. And in that room, the Lord just whispered to me as we were both just crying and sobbing and trying to comprehend what was going on. The Lord reminded me of a passage I had just read a couple weeks ago. And he whispered, Enoch. And so I pulled it up. on my phone, and I don't think I could speak. I think I just handed the phone to Nathaniel, and I said, I want to change his middle name to Enoch. And are you pulling it up? Do you want to read it?
Yeah. It was the verse in Hebrews 11. The verse that she initially showed me was verse 5. It says that by faith Enoch was taken up so that he should not see death, and he was not found because God had taken him. Now before he was taken, he was commended as having pleased God. Yeah, I think the Lord was just kind of obviously just ministering to us and comforting us with that verse, and so we decided to change his middle name to Enoch, and we felt like that was just the Lord very clearly speaking to us what was going on,
Mm-hmm. So we left eventually the doctor's office and called all the family from the car to let them know. And the next day or two were kind of a blur. I guess it was the next day that we went in to be. The next day we went in to be induced to deliver Bowen, and it took much longer than they anticipated for his delivery. But even in that, I think the Lord was very kind to us. Our whole family was able to be there.
Yeah. Everyone was there and waited at the hospital with us for hours, and Ira.
He showed up at the hospital before we did. He was waiting.
He was waiting to take pictures for us so we could have pictures of Bo. Yeah. And I remember him he had to go to work, right? And I think because it was taking like all day long. So he had gotten there. I think we got to the hospital, but it was like 6 in the morning. And Ira was already at the hospital waiting there for us. And I remember he wasn't delivered until the next day, right?
Midnight the next day.
Midnight, And I remember Ira waited all day long at the hospital with us, and then he had to go to work, and he left. And then I remember he came back after his shift because we were still in the hospital, and he still came back. But everybody was just everybody was just there for us.
And it took from 6 p.m. 6 a.m. on May 7th until midnight on May 8th. But we had all of our family around us, and our doctor was amazing, and one of our closest friends is a labor and delivery nurse at that hospital, and she was there for us all day. She had just had a baby 3 months before that.
Was that her first?
No, that's Hazel. That was their third baby.
No, was that her first day back? Was it with us? Or
I think she wasn't actually back. Yeah, she came back before her maternity leave was over, I think.
Just to be there.
Just to be with us. Yeah.
And so, it was just all these people.
Right. The Lord was just being so kind, and everyone around us obviously was just trying to show us love. And so even in probably the worst day ever, in the hospital, we still had lots of God moments happening around us. And
it was just the Lord just comforting us so much through all of these people around us who were just there for us. They would drop everything, to be there for us, and it was just amazing.
It's very easy in those moments, when you're going through the most painful and worst day of your life. It's very easy for Satan to try and come in and cause division, cause bitterness, cause anger towards the Lord. Did you guys have any of those thoughts? Obviously the Lord was there comforting you. What's going through your mind as this is happening, and how's the Lord ministering to you, not just with the people around, but how else is he, speaking to you and ministering to you?
Yeah, I feel like I don't remember there ever being a moment of being mad at God for it. I don't know. Maybe you feel different, but I don't remember us ever sitting there and discussing how we were angry at the Lord, or how we feel like God let us down, or anything like that. I think we kind of immediately. I think the Lord was just it was crazy. There was this immediate closeness to the Lord that he was just, as soon as we found out, even though our hearts were broken, meant that the Lord says, the Bible says he's close to those who are brokenhearted, and he comforts us. And I mean, it was just such an immediate, we felt the Lord's presence there. We felt him speaking to us immediately, letting us know it's okay, and giving us that verse about Enoch, that he's, like that he's with the Lord, and that he took him, and, and that it's okay, and so it was just this crazy amount of sorrow, but at the same time, crazy amount of peace that we had, through the whole process, and I don't think that was just it was just the weirdest thing, but I think obviously, I mean, you're never closer to the Lord than when you're broken.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I just feel like that was some of the closest times we've ever had with the Lord, is when we were just absolutely broken. And we were just like, Lord, I have nothing at the moment. I have no strength on my own. I have nothing, I just need you. And he was there, and so I just remember this immediately, even as finding out, it was just like the Lord was just present with us, and he was like, it's okay, I'm here. And he was, I think he was he used people around us, I think, as his primary way. I just remember the nurse, the ultrasound technician who first found out that Bo was gone. I just remember she just stayed with us the whole time, and was holding Bethany, and was just letting her know that it's okay, and walked Bethany all the way out to the car. And I think
basically carried me.
I think that was so awesome, is just all the people, even at the hospital, all the nurses and all the doctors who were just,
they were just
broken with us. Yeah. They would just come with, and they would just cry with us. I mean, I know it's kind of an odd thing. I know they see it all the time, but I just remember it was the most comforting and amazing thing that just these nurses would come in, and they would they would be broken with us, and
there was no one at the doctor's office or the hospital that ever acted like he was,
that this doesn't matter,
just a fetus, that
right,
that we had no reason to be sad, that this is just it was just a miscarriage, it's fine. And
right,
we were really, really blessed with people around us in the hospital. God, we believe God brought our whole medical team
absolutely
there on purpose, and people who I still keep in touch with some of them over social media, and they tell us, they're like, oh, we think about Bo all the time, and just so that obviously was, like Nathaniel said, such a big comfort.
And we just kind of immediately knew that the Lord was just doing something with his, it was just like his life already had so much weight, in our lives, and again, the Lord was just comforting us the whole time through people, even just through moments alone. It was just, we had this unbelievable peace. We're like, okay, he's okay, and again, it's those moments where you're faced with, like, is this true? Is what we believe true? Because if what I'm believing is true, then Bo is okay. Yeah. He's fine. He's with the Lord, and ultimately this is going to be okay. And the Bible says that we mourn, but we don't mourn as those who have no hope. And so I think it was just a very real picture of that for us. It was just like, okay, this is true. We believe wholeheartedly that what the Bible says is true. And so even though we're mourning, we are not mourning as those who have no hope. But even immediately we're like, we know, okay, we don't get to see Bo right now, but we know we're going to see him again. And it was just so comforting. And so it was just this craziest time, of just the Lord drawing us close, letting us be broken, but just speaking to us and ministering to us. And it was crazy. So he was born on May 8th. He was born.
Yeah, well, I know for me, one of the biggest, and I think you too, but one of the biggest ways that the Lord answered a prayer in that time, they told us, I think in the ultrasound, or that same day, May 6th, when we found out that they weren't sure how long ago he had passed, that it could have been recent, but it could have been perhaps
a few weeks.
And that they weren't able to tell how badly his body had deteriorated yet. So obviously hearing that, we didn't know really what to expect when he was born. And I was just terrified through that whole night leading up to our induction the next morning, that he would not be born whole, that the delivery would be too hard fragile body that was possibly, really not doing well already. And I was just, I know this sounds awful, but just really afraid that he would come out in pieces, and I couldn't handle that fact or that thought. And so I prayed the whole night through that God would protect him, that we would be able to see him, and that we would be able to see his face, and that he would be whole, and that he'd be protected during delivery. And sure enough, he was born in call, which is when the baby is born fully inside the amniotic sac, which is incredibly rare, and just it doesn't happen. I think all of our nurses were like, oh my gosh, I've either never seen this or seen this one time before, and they were all marveling over it too. And obviously because of that, because he was born in the sac, he was completely protected, and he was whole. And that was an immediate answer to my prayers. And I know, you felt that too, but I know that I was just terrified that he wouldn't be okay. And, but yeah, so they broke the sack, and then they handed him back to us, and we got to hold him and be with him. And the whole family got to hold him, and we have pictures thanks to Ira.
Yeah, of everybody with
Bowen.
Yeah.
And we have this amazing picture of right after he was born, still in call, of our close friend Maddie. She has a tattoo on her arm, and she's holding him with us, and it says, "He will sustain you." And it's just, one more crazy God wink that we have to look back at.
And we just kept going back and looking at these pictures, and just, it was things like that just kept hitting us. But I remember that one specifically, going back and just seeing this picture of
will sustain you.
Maddie holding Bo, and her arm says, "He will sustain you." And it's just, it was amazing.
Yeah.
So out of that, now that it's been about a year and a half, the Lord has birthed a ministry for you guys out of Bo's life. Why don't you guys talk about, I guess, how that started, and when you really felt you were supposed to, I guess, start moving forward with writing some music?
Yeah, so we, Spen said we've been doing worship ministry for, almost our whole lives, and so we've been involved in worship and music, but we both felt for a long time like we wanted to write, and, but there was just kind of this, this pause, I think, that the Lord was putting on us. We'd try to write some things, and it just, just didn't seem right. There wasn't like a peace about it. And so it wasn't until after Bo passed that we really kind of felt like the Lord, it was just both of us on our own, and we came together before, like, the Lord was saying to us, he's like, okay, now's the time. Now's the time to start writing. I think a big piece of what was stirring that is we're processing Bo and what was happening, and we're like, okay, now how do we respond to the Lord in this, and then that's when the Lord was like, okay, you can write now, and so there was kind of this twofold thing of one, it was like, okay, God, this is how we're going to respond, this has happened, but you've been so good to us, and you've comforted us so much, and we've seen your hand so much, and so it was just like this response to God, and like, what can we do but worship you, you know what I mean? And so we're like, we need to write and respond to the Lord in worship. But on top of that, it was this, the Lord had given us this other verse. And so, the Lord gave Bethany that verse in Hebrews 11:5 when we were in the hospital.
When we got home.
When we got home, we had no idea that the verse right before it is a verse about Abel. And so, so Bo's name was already Bo and Abel. And so we had named him Bo Abel, then we changed it to Bo and Abel Enoch. And so we got home, and we were reading that verse again, and we looked up, and the verse right before the verse about Enoch is the verse about Abel, and we were just like, this is insane. And, but again, it was just like the Lord just kind of giving us these verses at very specific moments. But Hebrews 11:4 says that by faith Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain, through which he was commended as righteous, God commending him by accepting his gifts. And through his faith, though he died, he still speaks. And again, we're just like, oh my gosh, we're like, but that whole idea of okay, Abel, even though he's dead, he still speaks. And so we were just like, okay, how do we carry that on? You know what I mean? And so this idea to start writing was both our response to the Lord, but we're also, it's Bo's testimony and Bo's life speaking through us. And so, I mean, that's the whole, that's where the title for the EP came from. It's Bowen Abel Still Speaks, and it comes from that verse. And that's really what birthed this whole thing, was just like, okay, his life now speaks through us, and through our response to the Lord, and through how we worship the Lord now, and through what we choose to do. If we can, life, we're faced with this horrible tragedy, and we either become bitter and let Bo's name die in our bitterness, or we respond to the Lord correctly and let Bo's name speak through our faith, and so that's where Bowen Abel Still Speaks comes from. The whole EP, it was just in the whole season of us starting to write was response to God in worship, but on top of that, knowing that this is what the Lord wants us to do, is through music, allow Bowen to still speak. And that's kind of, as we were talking about, even like, what do we call ourselves? What do we name ourselves? We didn't have Bowen Abel at first, but we were both like, we want to do something with Bo. We were trying to think of different names and, how to incorporate Bo into what we would call ourselves. And then we just kind of were like, why don't we just
use his name?
We'll just use his name. We're just like, we love his name. We loved his name. And it was kind of funny. That was actually something we're very sad about. We loved his name, what I mean? And we were so sad about not being able to. I mean, it's such an odd thing you don't get to think about, but like, we lost him, and we're like, we love his name, Bowen Abel. We love being able to call him Bo, and we were mourning even just being able to use his name. But then then we were like, okay, it doesn't have to. Yeah, let's use his name, And so the Lord kind of put that on our hearts to start writing, and that kind of obviously Bo birthed Bowen Abel, and started this on that whole process.
So you just a couple weeks ago released an EP, right? A 3-track EP, and it's called Still Speaks. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music. Is it anywhere else?
It's everywhere.
Everywhere else.
It's on
everywhere
YouTube,
else.
On Google Play, Amazon. It's everywhere. Yeah.
So the first song on there is called "Hold On."
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite songs. It's a beautiful song. Why don't you, I guess, tell me what the heart was behind that song, and I guess, just tell me about that song.
Yeah. Do you want to start?
Sure. That song came out of, as most of them did, a really rough night. My sister, who has for years now been dealing with really severe health problems and mental health problems, was having a really, really bad night, and she came over and she told us that she wanted to go be with Bo and be with Jesus, meaning that she didn't want to be here anymore and that she wanted to end her life. And that obviously was a really, really hard time, a really awful night. And after holding her and crying with her, and in that moment pleading with her and trying to reason with her, we need you here. Bo and Jesus are gonna be there when it's our time to get there. And all that to say, that night, we just, after she left our house, we just sat and cried, and I was terrified of losing my sister, and thankfully, we'll go ahead and say it now, the Lord sustained her, and she has been through hell and back and a million times through. But she is here, and she's doing amazing, and she's doing incredible things, and the Lord is using her. And but in the darkness of that night, Nathaniel and I just kind of cried together, and we just broke out the guitar to it's sort of how we just began processing emotions together after Bowen and the chorus kind of started to form, and I think it wrote itself pretty quickly within a few days.
Yeah.
Just off the raw emotion of all of this, and so it's called "Hold On," like you said, and it's a plea to our sister to hold on to the Lord and to all that He has for her here, to hold on to us, and to just hold on to life. And she, now doing so much better, is also able to take that song and share it with people that she knows that are struggling, and she's now someone able to really relate to people in that place and to help them in that struggle. And that's what we wanted this song to be, was a comfort to her in that time and to anyone else who's there now. Yeah. Do you have anything else to say?
No, I mean, I think that's exactly right. It was just it was just a plea for her to hold on, I mean, obviously.
A very sincere, I don't know that when we wrote it, we ever really thought it was going to be on our EP, but it was just a sincere, please don't make this decision. Don't leave us. And
hold on to us and hold on to the Lord. And I realized that the main two things we were asking over, don't, the Lord's got more for you. Don't give up. Hold on to the Lord. He's still strong, and hold on to us. We'll be there for you. So,
well, if you don't mind, I'm going to play a little bit of that song for everybody to hear, and because I think they'd be really blessed by it. So here is "Hold On" from the Bowen Abel EP, "Still Speaks."
Be still and know darkness gives way to the light, the end of this road. Stay, won't you please stay? Feel like you're better off gone. We need you home. So don't you give up on me. Won't you hold on? Really just wait and see. Won't you be strong? You can't just fall in my arms. I'll be strong. So won't you hold on?
Well, that was just a little snippet, little sample of the song "Hold On," and I would encourage all of you, if you have not yet, to go listen to and download and buy their EP called "Still Speaks." Again, their the name of their band, their duo is Bowen Abel, and I guarantee you guys will be beyond blessed and encouraged. And I hope you guys have been, as I have been, blessed and encouraged by hearing just their story and their testimony. So do you guys have any more music that you've written or coming out sooner that people can look forward to? Because I know once they hear this, they're going to want more. So come to church first to hear them lead worship. Come on Sundays,
Sunday.
Calvary Chapel, Charleston.
Yeah, no, we're writing. We've got a few more finished for sure, and we've got a bunch more that we're working on. So we are, we went through kind of obviously a season of recording. So even just with that, real quick, that song "Hold On" was about Bailey, and something that was so cool is, we were writing these songs and sharing them with our family, and Bailey was, was just always so encouraging to us, and was like, you guys are going to get to record this someday and all this stuff. And we're like, yeah, we'll see what the Lord does. And then Bailey met her boyfriend, Angel, and she went and met him, and she came back and she was like, you guys, Angel plays guitar and he does, and he plays the cello, and then he's a producer and an engineer and all, and we're like, oh my gosh. And so then we started to get to know Angel, and I guess the Lord just put it on his heart to help us get started and get recording, and and so he's just been this huge blessing to us. And so he kind of like, we don't know anybody, we know nothing about recording, we've done a tiny bit on our own, but so he just took us under his wing, and he just, again, it was just kind of like the Lord opening these doors, and and it was so cool that it was going through Bailey as well. So it was cool having Bailey's boyfriend Angel
record that
help us
song
record and hold
specifically,
on,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
And
And she was there in the room, and while we were getting to record it,
cool
and so
experience,
and so we got this huge benefit of
pretty full circle moment.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
we'll
so
see
cool.
what's next. When we sat down and talked with Angel, we talked about doing some acoustic stuff, and Lord willing, doing some more projects with him too. So we're really excited about that. And so they've got a ton going on right now. So
so
just
cool.
when the Lord opens the next opportunity, we have songs. We're ready. We're just kind of waiting for the next opportunity for us to get in and keep recording with him. So
But
That's
we
very
will
cool.
keep writing in
Yes.
the meantime.
Yep.
writing.
Can't wait. So make sure you guys follow them on all social media, Facebook, Instagram. You'll see all the updates. Sure, they can still get some merch, some awesome shirts and buttons if you guys are still giving those things out. And by the way, I have to say, I have the first signed poster of Bowen and Abel from their release party. Very proud of that. So Bethany had to actually practice her signature. So her autograph.
Don't know what I'm doing.
Yep, that's okay. But please do go listen to it. You guys will be very encouraged. And I'm very blessed that you guys were willing to do this. Bethany, thank you for not being as nervous. And
Anxiety
it's
spot
okay.
just read.
That is okay. I love that you were willing to do this. And I know everyone else is very blessed. And I'm blessed that you guys were here. And love your story. And Bowen is definitely still speaking. So love you guys. Thank you guys for joining me.
Yeah.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of The Least of These. If you were encouraged by this testimony and want more content, please make sure to rate us and hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends and family, and we will see you next time on the next episode of The Least of These.